There's a lot of fish in that weed patch there. I'm not even... There we go. That's a nice bass. There. Not bad for a first one. Get him on a jig. Three-pounder to start the day. Thank you, bud. Want to catch big crappies like that? Get you a Get Fish Edge 19 and see what you've been missing. Not gonna lie, my wife might actually have some competition. That is how much I've been enjoying my Get Fish Marine Edge 19. And thank God my wife usually does not watch any of my videos, so hopefully I can get away with saying that. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. And as promised, I am doing a review after the install of my Edge 19 that I just recently acquired a few weeks ago. I've had it out about 3 or 4 trips now, and the water is getting cold. I don't know how much more time we got up here in Minnesota before our lakes freeze up. I'm thinking we're going to be good through Thanksgiving, but you never know. So I wanted to get some time out there and be able to put this video out for some reviews. So let's go ahead and go through a list of what I enjoy about the unit and what I don't enjoy about the unit. And hopefully that'll help make your guys' decisions a little bit easier when you're going through the off season, rigging new boats, or just upgrading your old boat like I usually do. Okay, before we get into the actual review of my Edge 19, I do want to state that I am not financially obligated or under a contract, no nothing, to be doing this review. This is totally my unbiased opinion for you guys to help you decide if you want to go with this route or if you want to go with a different brand. I paid full retail for this unit, and I would gladly do it again. So that's a whole part of this review here. Now, I also want to say that as a fisherman, fishing can be as cheap as you want to do, or you can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want, and you can spend a lot of money real quick. I'm not going to pressure you guys into doing that because, let's face it, we don't really need this type of setup just to catch little green fish. I will say though, it makes it a lot more fun. And but I'm just trying to tell you guys, don't go broke going on a hobby. Unless you're trying to make a career out of this, if you can afford it, that's awesome. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go over is the installation. Pretty straightforward. It was running 3 cables basically. You get 16.5 foot cables. Yeah, in my installation video, which I'll link below, I do mention that I wish they provided a little bit longer cable, like an 18 to 20 foot cable. But for most installations, most boats, the 16.5 foot cables are going to be more than enough to go from your console of the boat to the bow of the boat, where you're going to have this. Most likely you're going to have this graph. Next, I want to talk about weight. As I mentioned in that first video, this thing is definitely not the lightest thing out there. However, when you compare it to what I had on the bow of the boat to this, to what it actually weighs, it's actually pretty much a wash. So what I did was, because curiosity got the best of me, I took my two 106s and weighed them up, and gimbal brackets out, and the one was on ram mount, weighed that as well to see how much it totally added up. Now, as you can see, I only have one 106 SV on hand at the moment. The other is on my aluminum boat that I currently have loaned out to a friend. So we're going to go ahead and weigh up one 106 SV, and as you can see, it weighs about 4.28 pounds. So we'll just have to remember that and add another 4.28 pounds to the total weight of when we go ahead and add everything else. So like I said, so here we're adding, so with that being said, we're going to add the unit, the head unit, the gimbal bracket, and the ram mount. And as you can see, it comes out to about 15 pounds, a little over 15 pounds. So if we add the other 4.28 pounds to that total weight, we come up with just over 19 pounds. So we get about 19 pounds. So so if we compare that to the 20.7 pounds of the Getfish Edge 19, it's pretty much a wash. Speaking of weight, part of the reason why this unit weighs so much is not only because it's big, but because for the gimbal bracket, Getfish Marine uses a steel bracket versus a standard aluminum bracket that most other brands use. I'm going to say that I actually like the fact that they use a steel bracket for this application, because I have, in the case of some of my hummingbirds, I've actually had the gimbal brackets bend out a little bit due to hitting large rough water waves and spearing waves. So I've had issues with those. So I'm kind of glad that they went with a steel gimbal bracket. And what's really cool is that they use, I don't know if you can see that or not, they use aluminum, kind of a aluminum teeth for adjustments versus the plastic on what you find on most other brands. It's just something that, from a durability aspect, I really like and enjoy. So they are definitely not scrimping out right there. All right, so next let's talk about the screen of the unit here. You know, comparatively, there's very little, if there is any lag, it's imperceivable, I guess you could say, unless you're like going super crazy, stupid fast, which you're probably not going to be doing anyways. And then another nice thing about the screen is the anti-glare glass that they use. It's definitely different compared to what you would find on pretty much every other brand out there. You don't really get you really won't be able to see it here. You won't really see your reflection so much versus, oh, we'll just turn that off here. I'll show you what I mean. You can see right here that, you know, it's definitely different compared to the Humminbird, to a different graph. You know, here you can see my reflection. There, not so much. And Michael from Getfish Marine has a video doing a comparison on their graph versus a MBT screen, and he does a way better job of me describing the anti-glare. But just so you know, in my experience, I love the fact that it's kind of this like matte finish, I guess you could say. Versus, I can actually, I don't have the sun reflecting into my eyes, I guess you could say, off the screen, which would obviously cause glare and whatnot. So that's a big plus for the Getfish Marine units. And while we're on the subject of the screen, just look how much more real estate this is compared to the Helix, to a Helix 12 unit. You know, 18.5 inches is ridiculous, but I'll tell you what. Yeah, I put my Garmin in the simulator mode so we can play around and show around. My all-time favorite screen so far is the live scope split with the map. I still have enough of a sliver of a map for my Navionics charts that, yeah, I still have way more live scope screen than you'll ever need. Originally, on my two Garmin's I had up here, I had one solely for map, one for my live scope. I would have to look back and forth between it. Now I can just glance down at it and see it all at once. Not a big deal. And that is the main reason why I even got this unit in the first place, was to eliminate that. You know, another advantage of having the big 18.5 inch screen is I can pick out the fish so much easier in the weeds. I can see smaller detail. I can see the small details better, and it's easier. It's actually easier on my eyes after a long day of fishing. You know, you're staring at a little 10 to 12 inch graph for 8 to 10 hours a day. And for somebody that wears contact lenses like me, it does the number on your eyes. And for somebody that's losing their eyesight, maybe an older person as well, where their eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, everything is so much more blown up on the big 19-inch screen. And I personally just feel less eye fatigue at the end of the day. As well as I can pick out little smaller jigs and my bait's a lot easier on the bigger screen versus the smaller screens. That's something that I really recognized instantly when I started fishing for crappie on one of my trips. Was I was able to find my little jig head minnow so much easier. So less eye fatigue, easier to pick out baits, which equals more catching fish. Okay, so let's get to the elephant in the room. The price to value ratio. That's not really a thing, but screw it, I'm making it a thing. Because value, and you know what makes it valuable, or a setup like this valuable, and compared to, say, going out and actually decking out your boat with a couple of Garmin Echo Maps or their 8600 series or their new 9000 series units. You know, for a guy that has 4 kids, just, you know, I have to, anytime I want to do anything to my boat, as far as upgrades or buy expensive fishing tackle, like, I have to seriously scrimp and save for a while, because I'm trying to make sure that I do my fatherly duty to put my kids first and get their future set up. So, and that's part of the whole reason why I am saying don't go broke fishing, basically. Because there are more important things in life. But let's go back to the units. In the last video, I explained that I bought myself a refurbished Garmin 8612 for $3,300 after tax. And then the Edge 19 is $2,399 or $2,400. No tax, free shipping. So I'm into this unit or this setup for $5,700. So let's compare that to, let's say you go out and buy 2 Garmin EchoMap Ultra 2 106 SVs. Without transducers, they retail for $2,100 each. So you're at $4,200 for that setup. Now, you're into that setup cheaper, but in reality, all you did was pay more for the same amount of screen that you get off of just for the Edge 19. And you gotta split that real estate between the bow and the console. Unless you go ahead and buy a third one, now you're up to $6,300. So if you wanted to have a 10-inch screen at the console and 2 Garmin and 2 10-inch screens up here to basically have the same real estate, your money, in that case, you're either going to be money ahead, but with less real estate, or you got to go buy a third unit and you'll be still less real estate in the overall grand scheme of things, and you'll spend more. So maybe you're kind of seeing why this might be a good idea for the setup. Let's take it a step further. Let's go 2 Garmin EchoMap Ultra to 126 SVs. Those retail at $2,900 without the plus tax, without the transducer. So 2 of those, you'd be at $5,800. So right there, you're still at less screen real estate, and you still paid more money. And then it just gets worse from here, guys. You know, if you look into the new EchoMap Ultra 2 166 XV, just one of those is $4,600 without the transducer. So, you know, then you go buy and then if you add a 106 or a 126, you're already in $6,000 plus range. So as you can see, it's a pretty price efficient way to get as much real estate on your screen real estate on your boat as possible. So that's what I gotta say about that. More screen, less money. So that's pretty much wraps up my initial review. Like I said, I only have 3, maybe 4 trips, I forget, on the water with the Edge 19. I will come back in a year's time and do another year review just to see if my feelings have changed about the Edge 19, and maybe my wife won't have something to worry about. I don't know. I highly doubt it, because everything I've seen so far, and it just screams quality and is aggressively priced compared to their competition. You know, yeah, you're giving up a few features compared to some of the others like MBT Marine. They have 2 HDMI ports, so you can run 2 live scope transducers at the same time. Yeah, if that's something that's important to you, where you need to have live scope or forward mode and perspective on the same screen at the same time, probably not going to be it. You're probably better off with MBT. I don't know if RMP Flex has dual ports. I guess I never really looked that up, but those, not like I said, those 2 units have might have some features that the Getfish Marine doesn't have, but for the average Joe, I don't see how you can get the price of entry in this is pretty cheap comparative to the other brands out there. You know, like I had mentioned, there's more mirror screen brands showing up monthly apparently, and they're all priced higher than Get Fish. So, but like I said, hopefully that helps you out for making some choices while you're rigging the boat for next year or doing some upgrades. Maybe you're going to sit back and wait a year and let me be the guinea pig and find out it's junk. I don't know. But I highly doubt that's the case. Until then, we'll see you guys out on the water.